I stopped an anxiety attack at an airport last week using energy tools. And you already know them. You know all 3 energy tools that I used to stop this anxiety attack that I was having at the Charlotte airport last week. My husband and I were traveling to see my parents in Illinois. My dad turned 90 and we were headed to his birthday party. And Sweet Jim, as I have shared before, has a cancer challenge. And we weren't sure if he was going to be well enough to make the trip or not. However, he decided he wanted to do it. And we had him in a wheelchair so he could travel to Illinois. So we got into we live in South Florida, we got into the Charlotte airport, and there were a few things that happened. Jim was not feeling well, and we needed to wait for the wheelchair, and so we did, and very grateful to have a wheelchair. And then we needed to wait for the person to push the wheelchair, so we're very grateful to have that. And then we had to wait for this person to have another wheelchair to push, so I was getting impatient, because each one of these things was like a 5 to 7 minute experience, and we did have another plane to catch. And it's not like me to become impatient, but I did. I was becoming impatient. And then we finally got going, and this young man was wheeling 2 wheelchairs at the same time, and we were headed down the way. And oh my gosh, I started looking at all these shops on the way by, and they had all of this candy and all of this chocolate and all of these beautiful looking foods. And then I could smell the foods from the restaurants as we were going by. And I started getting frustrated. I started noticing that my energy was amping up, and I went from impatience to frustration. And then we got about halfway through the airport, and I don't know if you can sense the energy in my body now just thinking about it. So then we got to the kind of like the center of the airport, and he needed to take this dear woman in another place, and he said, please wait here till I come back. And then we were going to go another direction. Well, we were near a food court, and I could smell the food, and my body was screaming. My body was craving that food so much, and I could see the candies and the sweets and all of these things, and I could smell the fried food. And I had all my food packed in my bag. Now, you know, I've shared in the videos that I've been doing a liver cleanse, and I'm doing this very intentionally to heal a chronic condition that I have. And I'm very happy to be eating the healthy, clean, raw foods that I'm eating. However, this moment in the Charlotte airport, my body was screaming for these foods, for all of these other foods. And I said to Jim, I'm so anxious, I feel like I'm going to scream. And I really did, and now I know it was my body that was screaming for these foods and craving it. So I started, you know, how I am when I do the karate chop. How many times do I talk about the karate chop? Whew, I said to Jim, I started doing the karate chop, and I started walking around his wheelchair in circles, trying to get it to move, and then I did this. You've seen me do these before, and then I came back. Whew, and that felt a little bit better. But then I started realizing I started having more emotions, and it was like being deprived, that I couldn't eat those things. So I started using I release what no longer serves me. I release these emotions that no longer serve me. And I was standing in the middle of the airport. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care. I knew that I had to do something because there was so much anxiousness in my body that I couldn't eat these foods. Well, I've also been sharing that I am choosing very intentionally to release the energy of addiction. I've spoken into this, and I realized that this was a pattern of behavior that I have developed my entire life, that when I go to an airport, that I like to get a treat. And usually it's chocolate or sugar, or I eat some kind of fast food that normally I would not eat, even on a good day. Or even in the days when I was eating that kind of food, and I was craving that. These old patterns of behavior around food, and this energy of addiction, the way that I so addictively wanted to eat that food in this moment, brought on these level of anxiety that I was really stunned, and that's why I kept moving the energy. And then I finally started tapping, and I just kept saying, wow, I am, you know, when you tap, you speak into the negative stuff. I have got to get over this. I am really having an addictive experience. So I tapped, I did the central vessel pull, and I did CPR, which we call correcting psychological reversal. I did all 3 of those energy technologies right smack in the middle of the Charlotte airport, trying to release this overwhelming anxiety I was having around food and not being able to eat food and the literal physical cravings that my body was having. I was so grateful to be able to move that energy, and we ended up having a very smooth, uneventful trip, and the young man finally came back and got us moving. And little did he know that he left me in such a vulnerable spot with all of the smells and things, because had we walked right through, I still would have been impatient and frustrated, but I don't know that I would have had the full-blown anxiety experience that I did have, having to stay there. And it was close to 10 minutes. It might have been 12 minutes. Jim's behind the camera. I'm asking him. Yep. Probably closer to 12 minutes that we were in that I was stuck in that spot, if you will. But it was a beautiful opportunity for me to move the energy for all of these thoughts and experiences to come up out of my subconscious. So I became consciously aware of what it was I was releasing, and then could finish it all up with affirmations. I am so grateful that I choose to eat different foods now. I am so grateful that I'm healing my body with healthy fruits and vegetables. So that's my experience with stopping a full-blown anxiety attack using energy technologies. And you have everything you know to do the very same thing for you. I'm Connie Keene with Quantum Energy Infusion, where everything is energy.